Welcome to the big pitch. Bonjour, ni hao, haberi, assalamu alaikum. My name is Hishani Damdasa. I'm a senior director at the UN Foundation leading the Our Future Agenda program to help young people influence the UN and shape the global policy agenda. Every year, the big brainstorm has its theme. And this year, our theme is launching a year of action for the Sustainable Development Goals ahead of the second SDG Summit, the halfway mark for the 2030 Agenda. Designed 7 years ago, the SDGs are hands down one of the most inspiring examples of intergenerational action with a futuristic vision. The SDGs reveal the true power of what we can do when we work together, which is the very spirit of the UN. Now, with 7 months to go to the second SDG Summit in September, we will join world leaders to review how much progress has been made and set new benchmarks for the last chapter of the 2030 Agenda. It's a vital moment for young people who want more than a seat at the table and want to be part of designing and delivering a new generation of ideas and innovation. Young people like you who want to see more action to promises made and want a new global plan that tackles your most urgent priorities. Your very ideas, energy, and innovations will help remake our very international system at this game-changing moment. Because what we do now will impact not only our lives, but the lives of future generations. This fierce urgency to act is the core engine driving the big brainstorm. The ideas proposed by action groups launched today will inspire generations to solve world problems that affect millions of people's lives, galvanize thousands of young people into action, and influence one of the biggest political moments of the year. Now, let's take a quick sneak peek of how much ground we've covered recently. Since we started, the big brainstorm has mobilized over 2,500 young people throughout the process, with 975 ideas submitted from 136 countries. Wow, that is impressive. These numbers hold a powerful story of how young people are working together to unlock creativity, ingenuity, and partnerships across generations to drive the SDGs. We've seen this intergenerational power at work in the spotlight sessions with leading experts across a range of topics, from climate to jobs, education, storytelling, and the rising prominence of Africa in multilateralism. And we're only just getting started. We're bringing this momentum to 4 UN moments across the year, namely the ECOSOC Youth Forum in April, the High-Level Political Forum in July, the SDG Summit in September, and COP28 in November. And to help us power all these ideas into action, today, we will launch 8 action groups to inspire, galvanize, and influence thousands of young people to deliver solutions to turbocharge the SDGs. These 8 action groups are those you see on the slide now. Now, this brings us to what we've all been waiting for, the big pitch. Today, all 8 action groups will pitch their final plans to prepare for the SDG Summit with action group innovators, young thinkers and activists with concrete ideas to fast forward the SDGs. Each action group is represented by UN Foundation Next Generation Fellows, leading policy tracks in partnership with the UN and the broader international system. The big pitch is split into 2 panels of expert judges that will provide advice to 4 action groups at a time. After all the groups present, I will turn to each judge individually for their feedback to all the groups. Now, unlike a traditional Shark Tank model based on the best pitch or the winning solution, Each action group works to convince the panel and the audience that their ideas and plans can mobilize young people en masse as a generation of doers for the SDG Summit. This is because we celebrate innovation, we celebrate learning, and yes, we celebrate the pursuit of failure, because that's what it will take to unlock transformative progress on the SDGs. It's also because the big brainstorm is not fixated on an end game, but more about the bigger picture and the longer journey ahead for all of us to unlock a better future for people and planet. We'll announce the award after the special performance from one of my favorite artists, MC Millery, a young Chilean artist whose game-changing rap lyrics are turning the heads of industry and government leaders. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering how our judges will provide feedback to these groups when they are all so brilliant. Now, it won't be an easy task, but each judge is selected for their unique expertise they bring to the table. We've also given judges 3 areas to help provide a basis for their feedback. Firstly, the ability of the action groups to inspire generations into action and motivate young people to start their own innovations and join their efforts for the SDG Summit. Secondly, the ability of action groups to galvanize support for their ideas through an innovative approach that has the potential to accelerate the goals and capture people's imagination. And finally, the ability of the action groups to generate ideas that benefit generations and receive greater interest through the UN Foundation and the support of the Unlock Coalition. So who decides which action group wins? Well, we're leaving this up to you, our audience who's been on this journey with us all this time. Everyone online can vote by liking their favorite action group on our Future Agenda Instagram. The group with the most audience support receives a Mobilizer Award. And now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's get started on panel 1. We will hear from 4 action groups mobilizing for the SDG Summit, Future Generations, Peace and Justice, and Jobs and Economic Opportunities. Inez, our UN Foundation lead Next Generation Fellow, will represent her action group for the SDG Summit. Inez, over to you.
Thank you. So let's get started. Think back to 2015. Where were you? How old were you? How much have you grown since then? Have you achieved your goals? Are you where you wanted to be? As humanity, we set 17 goals in 2015 with 15 years to achieve them. Now in 2023, we're at the halfway point, and it's time to do a check-in. It will be no surprise, just as our New Year's resolutions, that as humanity, we are not good at keeping to our resolutions too. However, it's not too late to try again. And with young people, we've seen we can move faster, better, and leaving no one behind. Let me tell you how. I'm Ines Yabad, and since I was 15 years old, I've been trying to take action on issues so different, yet so interconnected. And it's been a joy to see how 3 innovators and all the members of the action group from different parts of the world have come up with solutions to some of our greatest challenges. We are looking to put young people at the heart of the mobilization efforts as designers of the SDG transformation process and champions for the rights of future generations. So join me as I share about just 3 of the amazing ideas young people have had to galvanize around the SDGs. This includes mental health. A study by our World in Data estimates that 792 million people lived with a mental health disorder in 2017. This is slightly more than 1 in 10 people globally. So I would say around 14 of us here today. Mikael, our first innovator, has created a solution, mental health rescuers. As a person who studied in 4 continents in 3 different educational systems, he realized that we need more effective health for young people. The aim of the project is to train volunteers coming directly from the school community. They will have the ease of recognizing mental health disorders among their peers, so they will be able to directly reach out to them and help them or refer them to a specialist if necessary. The project involves the development of a network of volunteers called mental health rescuers in as many schools as possible around the world. The trained volunteers would form what is known as a youth mental health service and will provide tremendous support to the health service, making it additionally possible to provide mental health assistance to those who cannot afford to pay for such treatment. It encompasses SDG 3, healthcare, but also directly impacts quality education, economic development, and supports legal security of communities. Disability is also referenced in various parts of the SDGs, and specifically in parts related to education, growth and employment, inequality, as well as data collection, showing that there's a link between different goals, and we cannot achieve one without leaving others behind. So see how we can better inclusion in this quick video. Pretty cool, right? Trinity is an amazing young innovator from Australia with a project called A Good Sign. And it's a new inclusive idea to bridge the missing gap in sign language translation to help people who are hearing impaired. 72 million people worldwide are deaf. Most people in this demographic live in developing countries and don't have access to sign language education or interpreters. Everyone uses emojis. They're quick and easy to understand. In fact, over 5 billion emojis are sent every day on Facebook Messenger. So let's make sign language into this emoji style. So far, the team has designed the alphabet for the Australian Sign Language, but there are over 300 different sign languages around the world. So we need more resources and support to build this. Today, we're asking for dedicated mentorship. This could include check-in meetings and advice on how to expand the project internationally. Also, access to networks and introductions to companies that might be interested in providing funding or support. This project would be perfect for diversity and inclusion funds. Or finally, if funding is not available, a dedicated team of software developers to work on the project. So what's next for the idea? It is now in your hands. If you're looking for a sign, this is it. Do reach out to Trinity in the chat if you'd like to know more. And finally, Mark and Muhammad, as experienced innovators, have paired together as collaborative leads to brainstorm around the Global Youth Storytelling Lab. It aims to create a collaborative and intergenerational research ecosystem that connects youth SDG campaigners around the world with research and storytelling experts to receive support in designing and implementing youth-led research and storytelling projects. Through these partnerships, youth advocates and researchers can co-create knowledge projects, connect to policymakers, and amplify the public stories of their work. The importance of storytelling cuts across all of the SDGs and can bring really complicated large-scale issues down to earth and connect people across different backgrounds and generations. So whether it is through technological innovations, mental health awareness, or global research and campaigning, we can achieve humanity's goals together. We just need you to join us for funding, connecting, and campaigning. Only together we will achieve them. Thank you.
Thanks, Ines. That was fantastic. Now turning over to Jacob and Claudette, the two UN Foundation Future Generation Next Generation Fellows, to represent their group. Jacob, Claudette, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, and good evening. My name's Jack, and my pronouns are he, him. I'm a lead change maker at the Office of the Future Generations Commissioner for Wales and a co-lead on the Future Generations track.
Hello, my name is Claudette and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a Next Gen Fellow for Future Generations from Mexico, and I co-lead the Future Generations Action Group. Jointly, Jack and I are very pleased to be with you today.
Since the big brainstorm on the 16th of February, it's estimated that 4,620,000 babies were born. Already decisions taken today by our policymakers will impact them and those born tomorrow. We have responsibilities to ensure that those who are yet to be born enter a better, fairer, greener and more equal world, regardless of being born this year or within the next 100 years and beyond. We hope our action group for future generations and the work of these young changemakers provides you with the assurance and inspiration that youth are galvanized behind this agenda.
The work of our first innovator wants to address a common thought. The social contract is dead. It is no longer fit for purpose. As you know, this is a non-written agreement between governments and society that sets out what we owe as each other and the benefits of an inclusive society working together for all. Nevertheless, as we speak, the world faces multiple crises, cost of living, climate crisis, and raging conflicts. For this reason, we believe the social contract needs reform, and youth should be at the center of this renegotiation process, the same youth that will live firsthand the effects of such changes.
To get the perspective from around the world, David from the SDG Lab at United Nations office in Geneva has developed a value-based survey to find out what values should be at the core of a new social contract. Here are some preliminary findings from the survey. A need for better capacity building and training to offer youth practical experience, which will enable them to create and promote feasible practical solutions. There is a general sense of hope, though most respondents are pessimistic about the future of the world. Shared hope can be used as a powerful resource to inspire more participation and can be converted into action through enabling capacity building and training. And finally, global solidarity is viewed as a solution to relieve youth from pessimism, but also to joint action. David will now continue to gather insights from youth around the world through the survey and will work with his group in the next months to integrate these findings into an action-orientated new social contract to be presented at the SDG Summit.
Then we have Jacob from Uganda and Guara from Bolivia, a couple of inspiring social entrepreneurs. Setting their challenge is best exemplified by the Batwa community from Uganda. Displaced from their ancestral forest homes 3 decades ago in a move to conserve wildfire, many of Uganda's people continue to struggle for a more dignified way of life. To sustain their livelihoods today, the displaced Batwa perform reenactments of how they once lived to groups of paying tourists on their ancestral lands. Communities like the Batwas are not alone. Indigenous communities around the world face many challenges in preserving their knowledge and traditions, including language barriers, globalization, and cultural appropriation. Given the 80% of our diversity is on indigenous lands, the world's 100 million indigenous people play a critical role in conserving the regional traditions and ancestral wisdom to steward future generations. How can we amplify indigenous wisdom in a dignified way? Jacob and Guara want to find new ways that enable us to link past, present, and future generations. With your help, they will engage indigenous communities to co-create visions of the future to share with policymakers, using emerging technology, creative design, and innovation to safeguard these ancestral methods. With a variety of platforms such as social media, podcasts, and virtual reality, immersive storytelling can become a new way to bring new life to old stories and cultures.
Too many policies are created by middle-aged, tired white male individuals, and few have the courage or the foresight to engage with young people. Possibly the only time they engage with young people is on social media or when they want their votes. Our last Action Group innovator is Felipe from Argentina, who is working to engender an opportunity for young people to have a real impact on the future. By the time our generation is middle-aged, we want to know we've had an impact. Felipe wants to develop a toolkit to run multi-stakeholder foresight exercises that would include youth networks, multilateral institutions, and the private sector. Our goal is to create meaningful intergenerational spaces where young people can engage with decision makers and the private sector while building together their vision for the future, holding each other to account and co-imagining and co-creating the world they want for themselves and for those not yet born.
In the next 100 years, we're going to see global shifts in demographics. Namely, we know that the majority of future generations are going to be born in Africa and Asia. So Felipe will choose 3 countries in different regions to pilot the toolkit over the next 6 months and host 3 different local summits of the future before September 2024. We further hope the coming SDG summit will provide further opportunities to scale this idea.
We're grateful for your time and the opportunity to briefly discuss the work of the Future Generations Action Group and its developments over the last 2 weeks, a focus on redesigning a new social contract for the future, capturing Indigenous knowledge and practice of our communities worldwide, and to bring generations together through foresight to imagine a better tomorrow. We'd welcome your feedback, mentoring, networking, and funding opportunities. And well, during this big pitch of 6 minutes, 1,602 babies were born. Let's ensure our collective action provides them and those who follow with the future they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. That was amazing. I'm going to now turn it over to Kelechi, the UN Foundation Justice Next Generation Fellow, to represent her group. Kelechi, over to you.
Yes, I'm ready. Hello, everyone. At the Peace and Justice Action Group, we seek to ensure that access to justice is not just a concept that young people dream of, but a reality that we can experience. Come with me as I take you on a short trip to Uganda, Rwanda, Argentina, and the UK, where the action group innovators that I will speak about in a bit are pushing the frontiers for access to justice and empowering young people, individuals, and communities to know and assert their rights, challenge injustice, and build a more peaceful world. The work of these 2 innovators are data-focused, and the other addresses a pressing justice issue. Yes, access to justice is a basic right that everyone should enjoy, no matter how much money they have or do not have, or what their social status is in the society. However, the reality is that justice is still a privilege for many people around the world. According to the World Justice Project, about 5 billion people have unmet justice needs. This means that millions of people are unable to obtain justice for everyday problems or take advantage of what the law offers, leaving them in very unfair situations. This lack of access to justice can lead to mistreatment, inequality, and even human rights violation. It's a problem that affects all of us and highlights the need for change. Now, to the work of our action group. The work of our first innovator, the Mobile Legal Clinic, aims to address the lack of access to justice for ordinary people who are not educated about their legal rights. In today's world, marginalized groups often face insurmountable barriers to legal services, leaving them vulnerable and powerless in the face of legal issues. This lack of access to justice can lead to them becoming victims of mistreatment and inequality, which is why Patricia from Uganda wants to provide legal education and representation through the Mobile Legal Clinic. The mission of this innovator is to bring legal aid services closer to these groups of people and empower them with the basic legal knowledge they need to advocate for their rights. Through the Mobile Legal Clinic, access to justice can be provided to forced migrants, women, children, economically disadvantaged persons, and other vulnerable groups. We've had a pilot run of this project within the slums of Makerere University in Uganda and have seen the tremendous impact this program can have. With this initiative, we can create a just and fair world where everyone has access to justice, irrespective of their financial standing or social status. And this will in turn have a subsequent impact on the reduction of crime rates within this community. Now, come with me to Rwanda, where Patrick leads the Youth Cast, which aims to address the disenfranchisement of young people and their lack of involvement in key decision-making processes that affect them. The 4-phase mission is to equip 100 young people from Rwanda in political engagement and entrepreneurial leadership by December 2023. The goal is to build the capacity of young people, enabling them to influence national policies and promote inclusive policy reforms. By mainstreaming young people's voices in key decision-making processes, we hope to create a positive impact in Rwanda and other African countries. Recent events in Nigeria highlight the importance of young people's participation in political leadership. On the 25th of February, young people voted for their president of choice, showing their growing interest and investment in political participation. Now imagine if this level of political engagement could be replicated across African countries, beginning in Rwanda, with appropriate structure, training, and resources. the impact will be significant and unimaginable. Finally, let's make a quick stop with the work of our third innovator, the Outer Voice Peace Indicator, led by Camila from Argentina and David from the UK. This initiative seeks to develop an indicator that can be used by a range of impact organizations and NGOs to achieve peace in violent and non-hostile communities. You will agree with me that data is necessary to figure out which projects are most needed in a certain area and to keep track of progress. But data can be manipulated or distorted, making it unreliable, and this can lead to misguided policies and even wasted resources. Even though we are living in a time where democratic representation and institutional procedures are still in place, there are still silent conflicts of authoritarianism, repression, use of legislation, human rights violation, poverty, famine, and specifically the limitation of the rights of the people. Faced with this situation, this indicator can be used to first decentralize our ideas of peace and justice and serve as a platform to share people's priorities with NGOs and impact-focused organizations, encouraging them to work together on certain projects and combine their resources. Let's see this as a living solution built on the foundation of the needs of the people. I'm Kelechi Achinono, the Next Gen Fellow for Peace at the UNF. Join me, Patricia, Patrick, Camila, and David to complement our efforts to promote peace, justice, and inclusion by supporting our action group. Whether you're a young person, an individual interested in peace and justice, an organization, or a business, your support can help us create a better world for everyone. Let's work together to create a world where everyone has access to justice, young people have a voice in the decision-making processes, and local communities can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelechi. I loved your world tour of various ideas. We're now turning over to Saru, the UN Foundation Jobs Next Generation Fellow, to represent her group. Saru, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Let's begin. Work has never been harder for young people than it is today. From mass unemployment to burnout to exploitation, however they manifest, the challenges seem universal. And yet, positive youth solidarity on work has failed to materialize. Until now, I hope. My name is Saru Duckworth. I'm the Next Generation Fellow on Jobs and Economic Opportunities, and I've had the privilege to witness the incredible energy of the young global thinkers and doers in the Jobs Action Group, mobilizing together these past weeks around a common vision to reimagine work as we know it. We recognize that this is just the start, and we have a long-term vision for change. For one young person, an economic opportunity might mean a small improvement in their daily life, maybe the difference between money for an extra meal each day. But when you multiply this across communities, these small changes together actually become some of the strongest drivers of development transformation. That extra meal becomes more energy and time for starting a business, which means more money to send a daughter to school along with her brother, more knowledge and resources to adapt to a changing climate, more progress, in fact, across every theme that we've discussed today. This group has both the vision and the energy to deliver that progress, but first, we need the right advice, which is where you all come in. We'll start in Botswana and Ghana, where young innovators Lame and Ope watched their peers post on LinkedIn and film viral TikToks, leaving their unfulfilling jobs and quiet quitting by disengaging at work. And the data quickly followed. A Gallup study suggested that 87% of workers in the Global South are not engaged or are actively disengaged in their work. And the pair could deeply relate to the frustration and disengagement on display. But looking further, they found nothing on how these transitions were impacting Global South youth like them. In order to fill this crucial evidence gap and bring hidden realities to life, they're launching an ambitious research collaboration with youth across 9 countries and counting. They aim to produce a body of knowledge developed by and for Global South youth, using innovative methods like foresight tools and communicating their findings and solutions through accessible mediums. Data storytelling graphics like this one will be animated and become part of a series of motion graphics for ease of sharing across digital platforms innate to youth. If we don't end these toxic cycles of burnout and disengagement for good, we won't have a future of work. What gets measured ultimately gets done, and so it's clear we need to be doing so much more for young people in the Global South. Now, moving to Zambia, where young community worker Florence and her team noticed marginalized young women constantly being told exactly what to do and how to do it if they wanted to become economically empowered. But Florence saw that what they really needed was to be socially empowered first. They needed the confidence and agency to make their own choices and invest in their own business ideas. She and her team are upending this dynamic through the Empower Her program, conducting rural outreach to slums and shanty towns outside Lusaka and engaging local women in open dialogue, discovering who among them needs the most support and what skills and businesses are locally appropriate and desirable. They'll then deliver short skills courses in desired areas, everything from tailoring and craft making to hair braiding and beauty services. Her work has also connected to youth in Uganda and Australia who are running similar rural skills programs for women, creating a global network of learning and support. And sustainability is in the DNA of this network. Florence has long-term ambitions to establish a skills hub in Lusaka as a center of community and innovation, and eventually provide startup business loans for successful training participants. This will enable them to pool their earnings and provide loans for other young women and create a sustainable funding source for ongoing support. Now turning finally to South Asia, with the largest youth labor force in the world. But like many regions, young talent is draining out at lightning speed, with energized and skilled youth forced to migrate elsewhere in search of more fulfilling and lucrative opportunities. Sushmina and her team of young changemakers in Nepal want to make room for youth to explore passions and skills as they transition from rigid school systems into developing economies. This year, the team will expand on their successful pilot program in Kathmandu, Project Akaj, and deliver a free package of support to cohorts of unemployed youth. The package incorporates aptitude testing, skills and job readiness training, and a 2-month placement with partner host organizations to explore areas of interest. In order to do this, they first want to improve their holistic skill development curriculum and incorporate forward-looking skills that reflect changing job markets. This can become one of several global public resources that they produce for other young people to replicate their approach around the world, with interest already from young team members in Singapore and elsewhere. As they revamp and expand their program, they're creating an inspiring model for youth to revitalize local communities and economies. Each of these innovators is responding to a critical gap in the global conversation around youth and work, addressing employee disengagement and burnout, female empowerment and entrepreneurship, and revitalizing domestic economies. And global collaborations are being forged as we speak, whether for sharing public goods and resources, exchanging new data and evidence, and replicating programs in new contexts. The potential for impact with this group is huge. We need your support and solidarity now as these young leaders accelerate innovative efforts towards a more inclusive and sustainable future of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Saru, and all the action groups. That was simply amazing. We're now going to hear from our panel 1 judges and their advice for the action groups that we just heard. Today, we are honored to have Sofia Borges, Senior Vice President and Head of the New York Office for the UN Foundation, Alaa Murabit, Director of Program Advocacy and Communications from the Gates Foundation, Nina Boel, International Board Member of Amnesty International, and Isra Chaker, a Syrian-American civil rights activist. I'll turn to each of you individually for your collective feedback on the action groups. Your inputs can be to all the action groups as a whole or to a specific group. Now, Sofia, I'd love to turn to you first. We know you are a diehard fan for SDG 16, but we won't hold that against you because you led a mighty group of member states to champion for its inclusion in the 2030 agenda. You also have a wealth of experience to share on preparing for big political moments like the SDG Summit and the upcoming Summit of the Future. What's your advice to the 4 groups you've heard today?
Good morning, and thank you so much, Hashani. Good morning, everybody. This has been fantastic. At the beginning, Hashani outlined the numbers, participation rates for this big brainstorm, and it's terrific. So they speak for themselves. Really happy to be a part of it, and really honored to have been part of this panel and to hear the pitches. You were all amazing. I loved every idea that was put forward and really inspired. And as we head into September, there are lots of opportunities for you to carry this forward, I feel. And I didn't want to focus individually too much on each pitch, but I wanted to, the things that struck out to me were, one, all pitches were really targeting that the whole leave no one behind concept of the 2030 agenda. So I love that. I think that's fantastic. Whether it's Trinity's idea on the Google Translate for deaf people, whether it's the legal clinics that was presented under the Action Group on Peace and Justice, whether it's the future generations, the future's foresight labs. I think it's all terrific, and each has a starting point in the now and is also very projected to the future, and that I think is very important, and that has longevity. The advocacy campaigns I loved because they speak to the moment right now, and I think it's something that you can pivot very quickly to what is going to happen and feed into what the UN is talking about, and trying to craft a campaign that is going to capture, that goes beyond the walls of the UN, beyond First Avenue in New York City. So I think there are opportunities to connect and to share these ideas with the system. But I wanted to say that the idea, we were given 3 criteria: inspire, galvanize, and benefit. And for me, the one that really stood out in terms of meeting these 3 criteria of inspiring to act, galvanizing support for the innovation to capture, imagination and benefit future generations, that for me was this idea, because it's very concrete. It's not advocacy, it's not a campaign, it's an idea that you can, and I think it's easily translatable in terms of, it has legs, right? And so that was Trinity's idea for Google. I was blown away by that, Trinity. Fantastic work. And I think you should be encouraged and to continue this. And I had never thought of that the challenges, and you take everything for granted. And that really resonated with me. So good on you. And the other one that I thought is really important is the Future Generations, the Foresights Lab. That is fantastic, given that we are heading into the conversations around the Summit of the Future. My question to that is how to make it really multi-stakeholder, but also to capture different parts of the globe to ensure inclusion, and also to reflect the diverse voices. I think that's very important to ensure that there's that. On the SDG lab campaign, I said you needed to connect to the UN. On the Empower Her idea, I loved it. I loved the focus on, ensuring financial independence. One of the things that my suggestion, and this is what I got on the brief, was the focus on skills, building skills around very traditional areas of work or spaces for women. And I was wondering whether you could be a bit more creative and venture out to, skills that are more future focused, or even basic computer training and things like that, or financial management skill sets. Not to focus just on catering, the list that I saw on our brief. And then there was one about the pulling up data for, it was under the Peace and Justice, and it was a lot of effort, alta voce, on your peace indicator. And the thing that resonated was this proposition you make about collecting uncorrupted data. That needs to be unpackaged, and I was wondering what that how you could achieve that, and then how you turning back and linking back to the SDGs, especially goal 16. There are a number of indicators there. We shouldn't revisit old ground, use what is existing. The 2030 agenda is a great blueprint. It's a very future focused agenda. And I think we should use that as a baseline and not throw it and recreate another version of the SDGs, and so work with that. But thank you so much. Wishing you all the best and really happy to be here. So if you have questions, I'm really keen to hear from the other panelists. So I'll cede the floor back to you, Hashani. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofia. I mean, you were great on timing, you were great on insights. I think you spoke about the interconnections of the SDGs, the power of advocacy to shift hearts and minds, and the importance of tinkering. Continue to tinker with your ideas, see what's out there, and explore with others in your action group. I asked the action group members that resonated with Sofia's comments to share their feedback in the chat and in the Q&A and continue that conversation, because we're hopping right along to Alaa. You're up next. Not only are you an SDG champion, but your story is legendary. Your friends jokingly call you the Libyan Doogie Howser as you join med school at age 15. You since turn your sharp eye to policy to launch the Voice of Libyan Women as a nonprofit, shape health security issues as the only UN high-level commissioner under 45, and now oversee global health policy and advocacy at the Gates Foundation. Wow. What advice do you have for our action groups today?
Well, I have to echo Sofia. I think they were all just absolutely excellent. It was exciting to hear from all of the different initiatives. I think, we were given kind of a call that they need to inspire, galvanize, and benefit. And I have a bias towards foundational policies, and I have a bias towards things that are sustainably inserted to ensure that everybody has the ability to create and to leverage it rather than a select few. And so that will show up kind of in some of my feedback. I really liked the Legal Mobile Clinic. I think there is an incredible amount of power when that has to be transferred for change to be sustainable. And I do think that legal power is one that is undeniably something that gives particularly marginalized and often overlooked communities access in unique ways. And so I really appreciated that, and I thought it was excellent. I'm going to piggyback on Sofia's comment on empower her, because while I love the idea of skills transfer, and I think it's absolutely critical, there are two things that I think we could discuss on that. The first is I dislike the term empower. I don't love it. It implies that women don't have agency inherently. And so I think I appreciate that really that skills transfer is meant to be amplifying and accelerating existing agency that women have. And I think language is very powerful. And we can start shifting that to say, okay, how are we actually bringing out the agency that women have? How are we giving them platform? How are we giving them opportunity that is well-deserved rather than the term empowering? And the second piece there would be really looking at, yes, that forward thinking. What are the opportunities that are often inaccessible to women by nature of them being women? And how do we ensure that skills transfers platforms take that into consideration as they build out their offerings? I didn't really understand as much the quiet quitting research. And I would love a little bit more clarity there as to what does success look like? What's the there? I think for me, a question I have is when we have countries that have upwards of 60 to 70% of the population, the youth population, unemployed, is the research on quiet quitting as necessary as research on where are the barriers to employment in the first place? That is kind of my bigger question. How do we ensure sustainable employment? I feel like the quiet quitting research would cover a very select few of a much larger population where youth unemployment is a critical issue. So how do we actually look at, particularly, for example, in a continent like Africa, where we know that the youth 50% of youth employment will come from one continent by 2030. And so the question of, okay, do we have the industries, the infrastructure, the opportunities for youth to be employed in the first place is something that I'd be incredibly curious about. And what kind of incentives or what kind of support, training, et cetera, would be needed to ensure that youth aren't only recruited into positions, but then retained and actually have opportunity for advancement and fulfillment. Yes, but really the first question about how do we get them there in the first place feels a little bit more salient to me. And so just a question about who the quiet quitting research would really benefit above all. And then the last one that I thought was, across the board interesting was yes, the projects that are really looking at mental health and how do we create space for challenging conversations and for and for support that is fundamental and needed. I would emphasize really looking at mental health and conflict in fragile settings. I think that's an important intersection. And I think increasingly, it means that we oftentimes in fragile and conflict settings think that, okay, well, food and shelter are enough. And the reality is, those individuals are often the most in need of mental health support and long-term health support. And so really making sure that we're able to address everybody and really truly leave nobody behind is really a question I have there. And I wish that had shown up a little more. Overall, just really excited by the intersectional thinking, excited by really tackling what does it look like to have a sustainable approach for youth and a sustainable approach for the goals? And how can we do that in a way that really amplifies, elevates, accelerates, and spotlights the agency of young people? So thank you all for your presentations.
Thank you, Alaa. I wish we had more time with you. I'm sure all the action groups feel the same. And I encourage all the action groups that responded and resonated to Alaa's comments to continue chatting and responding in the Zoom chat and Q&A. Alaa, you spoke to the power of language, the power of platforms, the power of opportunities to unlock those barriers that prevent us from really unlocking the SDGs, particularly in Africa, where we will see 11 billion people born by the end of the century. Your comments also resonated across the action group, so thank you for that intersectionality. Nina, we're keen to hear from you next. Like all our judges, you're phenomenal. Your background is inspiring. A medical doctor, a Danish diplomat, a relentless advocate for young people, a board member of the Amnesty International. There's so much you've accomplished. You also have hands-down experience in all the issues covered by the 4 action groups. We'd love to hear your guidance to them.
Thank you so much. And thank you so very much to everyone who had pitches. It's been absolutely truly inspiring to listen to. And I just found that all of them were so rich. They're focused on inclusivity, they're focused on empowerment. And I really like the way that all the ideas are focused on different ways of improving the human rights of marginalized groups. So thank you so much to everyone who pitched. Time doesn't permit going into details with these really very rich and excellent ideas, but I'll just add a few thoughts for each of the action groups. For action group number 1, I really found that you really live up to all the criteria that we're here to judge on. I mean, for Inspire, I really found the storytelling lab very inspirational for other youth, and the way that it brings forward both research and storytelling. Also in terms of galvanizing, I mean, it's I was thinking of the Google Translate for deaf people, and that's as Sofia also said, that's just truly a very, very amazing idea, and really well thought through. That's also something I didn't think of, but I mean, now that you've mentioned that, it's something that you really need to implement, and it's also something that it's an idea that can really engage other youth in developing this tool, in sharing new emojis, new signs, new words that haven't been covered yet on the platform. So I really see that it's also like an idea that really can support youth that are very marginalized. And then I was thinking in terms of mental health. I really like that idea as well. The way that it also engages peers, and the way that it focuses on mental health treatment as both being the health part, but also being looking at the educational side of it, and covering different goals to really have impact. So that was also really an inspirational pitch. For action group number 2, there were also some really rich ideas. I think in terms of foresight on future generations and having that toolkit that can really inspire youth and keep youth engaged in policy making that will affect youth, that was really a great idea, as well as the new social contract. I like that it's action focused and also the way that it supports youth. And then lastly, I'd also say in terms of impact, I really find that that there were some ideas around a dignified way of preserving cultures, and also having sort of this benefit future generations that the action group 2 thought quite well about. For action group number 3, those were also some really good ideas. I think in terms of the mobile legal clinic, I really like how that sort of gets out to the more marginalized communities, and also really great to hear that it's actually already been tried out in the areas around the Makerere University, so that you actually have that hands-on experience of the idea already, and really like the way that this can benefit youth and marginalized groups and bring justice to them. Likewise for the 2 other ideas, I mean in terms of the youth cast and the way that it thinks in this inclusivity of youth around the policy reforms, and also in terms of Alta Voz indicator, which is also focusing on how it can inspire youth in societies that are more marginalized. And I really like the way it looks at data and how to have unincorporated data. For action group number 4, I really like the idea empower her. I like the way that it sort of supports young women in developing their own businesses, and how it sort of that network of engaging youth and cooperating and sort of also engaging other youth in sort of the process of empowerment. Likewise, also in terms of the school to work transition, which can really have some impact for youth and get them jobs that are actually be inspiring and engaging them. That's something that can have some real impact. And lastly, also in terms of data storytelling on quiet quitting, it's also really inspiring and innovative. So all in all, I really think that all 4 action groups are actually covering the criteria that we're set out to judge with, and I'm just really inspired by these ideas. I think my advice to all of you would just be to believe in yourself and believe in your ideas for change and for making the world a better place. So I just want to thank you and wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you, Nina. I can tell you loved all the action groups as much as I do, and your advice was excellent. Thank you kindly. Isra, you're our final judge. You're a Syrian-American civil rights activist and humanitarian advocate with so much experience to share. You've also helped so many young people find the power of their voice through your own personal story and determination, become an ally and advocate for others, and influence policy through in-person and online activism. You're a powerhouse. What are your key tips to the action groups today?
Thank you, Harshani, and thank you, all the incredible presenters and the action groups. You all have inspired me. Like, I'm ready to jump in and join you on all these projects and just support you in any way that I can. I'm going to look at this and provide feedback a little bit from a different perspective than my fellow panelists, because as an activist, I'm all about grassroots mobilizing and understanding the power of the individual to feed into the collective. And I think that all of these already address that power. And I want to make sure that you all know and you feel that really proud of yourselves and feel that these issues and the way that you are addressing and finding solutions and proposing solutions that are very creative, that are very, very rooted in justice and inclusivity are incredible. And I want you to walk away feeling very proud of yourself first and foremost today. So congratulations on making it this far, and congratulations for creating something that was really inspirational for even us panelists and judges for you all. So congrats to all. That's what I want to first start off with. You know, when I'm thinking about the work that I do, I'm constantly thinking of the peer-to-peer, making advocacy and campaigning and creating positive human impact a universal and accessible for all, right? It's really important when you're doing this work that you don't work in a silo, you don't work in a bubble, and anybody, no matter what their identities are, no matter what their social economic status is, no matter where they live in the world, right, has that same access to create that same positive change that you are inspiring and calling on them to be and to have and to be part of, right? And, you know, Harshani mentioned it a lot, but I'm all about the power of recognizing the power of your own voice and realizing that your voice does matter and it does create change. Even if you believe as an individual you can't create that impact, you can. And a lot of my own experience growing up Muslim in America and dealing with a lot of the Islamophobia and bullying that I experienced in school when I was younger, and that led me on a trajectory to using my voice as my one tool to creating the advocacy campaigns and creating the positive impact of the work that I've been part of, is what motivates me to make sure that I share that with other youth. So really at the root of all your projects, you already know that it's the power of individual youth voices, but really nailing that down and articulating that very clearly in how you pitch this project to anyone moving forward, I think would be wonderful across the board. Some of the projects that really stood out to me, I really loved the training the peers to support mental health. That was so beneficial because, as we can see in the world that we're living in today, from the political conflicts to climate change narratives to people being forced to flee their homes, and that's a specific aspect of immigration, that's my expertise, is the fact that mental health support is constantly an afterthought or only thought of to allow people to engage in that mental health support once, for example, they have resettled or once they are displaced, never during the journey and in that process. What I loved about the mental health was that it was a peer-to-peer. It is a lot easier to connect with people when you are talking to your peer and when your peer is offering you resources versus somebody who's in a higher political power, and recognizing that power dynamic is really important. So I love that. I would love to see that concept taken across the world. I obviously also want to say, Trinity, amazing job on the good sign. Oh my gosh, I want to take that video and pitch it to Google. My contact's there right now. So I would love to stay in touch with you if you are looking for those connections. I think Google would literally hire you in a second. So I'm just saying that congratulations. And I think that animation video specifically was a really great way to really show us, right, and demonstrate what that could look like. A lot of these ideas, when you're thinking about sharing it out, verbal sharing and verbal cues are really important, but anything that you all can do to show the creativity visually and audio or visual or video, I think would be tremendous across the board. So definitely take that in mind as you plan for September and building on these pitches, what that is going to look like for you. Other standout for me was definitely the mobile legal clinic. I completely agree with my friend Alaa. The mobile legal clinic is special, and why it resonated with me especially was because part of the campaign work that I do right now at the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, is providing access, legal counsel access to people that are in detention in rural communities, people where, miles and miles away from any actual legal entity or lawyers. So one of my campaign strategies and objectives is to provide that legal counsel, because I recognize the power of that legal counsel. That is a generational, shift right there. That is making that impact, ensuring people not only know their rights, but also they have the resources to be able to fight for their rights. And then they spread that resources to other people, and they create that sort of that peer-to-peer ring and circle that just grows and grows and will help people for years to come. So I really love that. I thought everything that had to do with youth reimagining traditional systems and policies was so powerful. How you all literally created new ways to do a youth cast, to do the peace indicator, to create new ways for funding with the Empower Her project, the school to work transition, all of the projects that mentioned, the research aspect, that was so important. And I love that, because you're not just taking what face value research we have offered to us today. You're trying to create a new way of engaging and building this foundation of how you're going to build these actions as a platform to jump off of. And I really encourage that. I think we don't know all the answers. We can't connect to all the youth in the world. It's impossible. So being able to have you all in these communities on the local level doing this type of work and collecting this type of information is really important. And that speaks to the fact that if you're trying to do change or create solutions that are people-led, that center the voices of impacted people, that is how you do it. You do those focus groups. You do that one-to-one relationship building. You do the coalition building where they feel like they're a stakeholder in any of the work that you are doing. They are not a beneficiary to just, to provide aid to, or long-term or short-term solutions. They are people who are actually part of the change process, and they need to feel like they're bought into that in that way. So I really encourage all the ones that are already doing that, amazing. For the ones that are not doing that, is there a way that you can potentially engage youth in that way to be able to take your idea further, or provide more evidence to be able to push that idea further? I think that is all the specific feedback I have. I just really wanted to tell you that I think it's incredible, especially in the current political, economic, and social landscape that we're living in, that you are thinking through the nuances, that you are thinking through the inclusivity and the access and the barriers that other people, and specifically marginalized folks, specifically people of color, that have to face. And so the fact that you all are centering those voices is really, really powerful. I know that we're at the end of time, so I want to hop off and pass the mic back to Harshani. And thank you again so much. I'm so honored, so inspired. Please stay in touch.
Thank you, Isra. That was great advice. You spoke to the power of an individual, one person, to shift hearts and mind, to center people's voices and amplify people's voices on the ground. You also spoke to the power of peer-to-peer exchanges to really inspire collective action and strengthen partnerships across generations. Thank you, Isra, as well as Sofia, Alaa, and Nina. I know that a few of you have busy schedules and had to jump off early, but what a phenomenal women-led power. I think there's a lot of women out there, including myself, that are maybe hero worshipping a few of you, but thank you so much. Your feedback has helped to shape the mobilization for the SDG Summit and all the journeys of the young thinkers and activists engaged in the big brainstorm. You're welcome to continue to engage in the Q&A with Zoom chat with the action groups, and watch the show with panel 2 and the performance by MC Mallory. Let's get started on panel 2. We now have a new group of judges and 4 action groups for this segment: transforming education, climate and sustainability, financing for young change makers, and gender equality. Like panel 2, these action groups will pitch their final plans to prepare for the SDG Summit and the leading proposals of the action group innovators. Each action group is represented by UN Foundation Next Generation Fellows. After all the groups present, I will turn to each judge individually for their feedback to all the groups. Now, I know I have said this before, but just re-emphasizing it for our panel 2. This is not like your traditional Shark Tank model that's based on the best pitch or the winning solution. It's more focused on our ability to mobilize young people as a generation of doers for the SDG Summit. This is because the Big Brainstorm provides an open platform that inspires, galvanizes, and influences generations into action for a better future for people and planet. It's not about the end game, but it's about how we unlock intergenerational action to tackle our world's biggest challenges together. Throughout panel 2, we encourage everyone online to vote for your favorite action group by liking their Instagram post shared in the chat. The group with the most audience support receives a Mobilizer Award, and the race begins. So let's get started on panel 2. We'll hear from 4 action groups, starting with Alice, our UN Foundation Transforming Education Next Generation Fellow, who will represent her action group. Alice, over to you.
Thank you, Hashani, and hello, everyone. Welcome to a world where every student has access to quality education, regardless of where their background is or where they come from. My name is Alice. I am the Next Generation Fellow for the Transforming Education. Despite 244 million youth being left out of school in 2022, the youth of today are lighting the way towards a better education for all. With the world at a crucial junction between the Transforming Education Summit and the SDG Summit, now it's the time for innovative solutions to break down barriers and make this dream a reality. The Transforming Education Action Group is here to support bringing this dream to life with 3 innovative initiatives led by our amazing innovators. Our first action group innovator is Islam Zitouni from Algeria, who is focusing on self-learning. As we all know, the learning landscape is consistently changing, and new skills and knowledge are required to remain competitive in the workforce. Financial barriers and accessing education or training limit opportunities for self-improvement and lifelong learning. Islam is looking to provide a comprehensive program of workshops, seminars, mentorship opportunities, and a supportive communities, all centered around self-development. The uniqueness of this program is that it is open to young people aged 25 and under, regardless of their educational background. It is also self-directed, allowing participants to set goals and learn at their own pace. Through the provision of lifelong learning opportunity, we aim to bridge the current gap between the educational opportunities and financial barriers, inspiring and equipping young people with the tools they need to take control of their own learning journey and reach their full potential. Through this, young people can access resources necessary to stay competitive in the workforce and create a more equitable future. Moving to our second innovator, Tommy from Nigeria, who is lifting up disadvantaged communities and fostering hope. Her initiative aims to bridge the equity gap in education by empowering disadvantaged youth in community. Through a learner-centered program that emphasizes on problem solving and hands-on learning, this initiative will create a supportive ecosystem of educational resources that strengthen entrepreneurship, targeting students facing social, geographic, and access barriers by helping them discover their passion and develop the skills they need to lead fulfilling lives and positively impact their communities. Through this, our action group is poised to make a meaningful difference and help young people in disadvantaged communities with skills and support to become entrepreneurs, which will boost their livelihoods and those of the communities at large. Our last is a pair of innovators, Kinga and Yasmin from Germany and Egypt. These two are leading an alliance of partners for non-formal education. I hope you agree with me that sustainable development is of highest importance for a safe and generous future. But how can young people gain necessary knowledge and mindset to forward sustainable development if formal education hardly includes teaching around teamwork, negotiation, making friendship, and many more. Actually, there is another form of education that already excel in this area, and that's non-formal education. Despite its importance, non-formal education is not widely recognized and receives limited funding. The Alliance of Partners for Non-Formal Education aims to promote and popularize non-formal education as a valuable supplement to formal education, especially for sustainable development. The main goal of this alliance is to help non-formal education achieve its recognition and systematic support and funding. In the implementation phase, we will identify youth-led non-formal education programs from different countries and regions and create a space to connect those programs and exchange knowledge and experience to support each other. We'll consistently advocate for funding and recognition along the way and in the lead up to ACG Summit taking place in September. The Education Action Group is ready to mobilize, it's skilled, it's ready to galvanize, and is motivated to create a world where education is a right, accessible, self-owned. Join our big movements, either as a young person, or as a partner, or as a mentor, or as an education activist, or either provide any resource they could think that could be helpful for this initiative in this education revolution, and help us break down the barriers to make education quality a reality for all. So don't wait, start with us in transforming the future of education today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice. I loved your call to action at the end. We're now turning to Booty, the UN Foundation Climate Next Generation Fellow, to represent his group. Booty, over to you.
Thank you, Harshani. Hello, everyone. This is Boel a Next Generation Fellow for Climate. As everyone knows, climate change is one of the most pressing challenges of our time. Young people around the world are increasingly becoming involved in the fight against climate change, recognizing the urgent need for action to protect our planet. According to recent surveys, youth are the most engaged and concerned individuals when it comes to climate change. Participating in advocacy campaigns, educational programs that aim to raise awareness and promote solutions. The Climate Action Group is here with many young people mobilizing with the help of 3 young innovators, shaping solutions and taking action to protect our planet for future generations. We will start with the Clean Cities project led by the Action Group innovator, Martin Morenzo from Malawi. The Clean Cities project, which aims to contribute to the climate and sustainability in Malawi. In Malawi, more than 75,000 tons of plastic waste each year.
Sorry, Booty, I just want to... Sorry, just...
Plastic waste ends up in countries' landfills. Therefore,
is everyone hearing him better than I am? I don't think I'm hearing Booty well.
Booty, just to let you know, your audio is difficult to hear. So you might want to just bring yourself a little bit closer to the mic if you could.
Now it's okay?
Now you're echoing.
Okay, sorry for that. So let's start from the first project. So we will start with the Clean Cities project led by Action Group innovator Martin Morenzo from Malawi. A Clean Cities project which aims to contribute to the climate and sustainability in Malawi, where more than 75,000 tons of plastics each year are produced, and much of the plastic waste ends up in the landfills. Therefore, the Clean Cities project aims to solving this environmental problem by accessing the landfills and recycling the plastic waste into eco-bricks, which are planned to be donated to vulnerable households in rural areas to help in building improved pit lanterns, since more than 5 million people in Malawi don't have access to decent toilet facilities. Secondly, there's a very high illiteracy levels regarding proper waste management practices and sanitation in Malawi. This has led to outbreaks in wash-related diseases, such as cholera. By February this year, the country registered more than 50,000 cholera cases. Therefore, our project will further focus on conducting awareness campaigns and training workshops on proper waste management. Next, we have the youth-focused R&D hub, led by innovator James Pleasant from Australia. The Youth R&D initiative developed by our action group seeks to increase the supply of youth-generated R&D to unlock the capacity of young people to solve local climate change issues through global networks. Within the global youth population, there is enormous demand for climate action, with over than 75% deeming it's a global emergency, yet there is a far lower supply of solutions from them. However, by combining their passion with a solution-generating framework and sufficient funding, these youth are perfectly poised to build careers in climate innovations and make a safer, more equitable world for future generations. In saying so, to accelerate action towards sustainable development goals, this initiative aims to, firstly, connect youth around the world who are currently engaging in climate action-focused R&D, and train youth and community members who engage with them and teach these youth how and where to start thinking about generating climate-centric R&D. And three, training these two groups on how to commercialize their ideas, giving them the skills and the connections to seek financing and scale the impact and the scope of their innovations. This connection will primarily occur through a website, which is a hub for youth to engage with one another and become an emerging generation of change makers. Lastly, we have the Carbon Credits documentary by innovator Gathuni from Kenya. As we are facing a tricky question of how can we balance economic growth with efforts to mitigate climate change, carbon credits have become a sort of a reluctant platform for this conversation to be had. The carbon credits are a market-based approach to climate change mitigation that allows economic growth while also reducing emission. Our innovator proposed the use of a character-driven documentary to highlight a small community in Kenya where members of a coastal town have been voluntarily participating in carbon credit scheme by planting mangroves in a project called Mangroves Together. The documentary will highlight the potential negative impacts that carbon offset projects can have on rural communities, particularly where not designed and implemented in equitable manner. Why a documentary, if you will ask? Because ultimately care remains one of the strongest ways to catalyze action. If we can find a way to connect with the effects of climate change and see how proposed solutions affect the people advancing them, maybe this will shift our thinking around the climate and the part we play. In conclusion, this action group is addressing critical environmental challenges, and by supporting young innovators in their efforts, we can help to accelerate progress towards achieving the SDGs and create a more sustainable future for all of us. It's time to empower and invest in young people as they shape the future of our planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Budi, and you made it despite the tech challenges. Thanks for that excellent presentation. We are now turning over to Taylor, an advisor with the UN Foundation Art Future Agenda team, and stepping in for our fellow Inez that pitched in panel 1 to represent her group. Taylor, over to you.
Thank you, Hashani. In 1924, Louis Braille, 12 years old, invented Braille, which is now used by an estimated 6 billion people, 6 million people around the world, In 2014, Cynthia Sin Lam, age 17, developed a device able to create clean drinking water for remote communities. In 2015, Sungmin Wang, age 17, developed a financially accessible bacteria-killing door handle, unlocking endless potential for disease prevention. While these stories are amazing, when you examine their wider context, it is tenacity that enabled these innovations to reach the global stage, not a clear and supported pathway for advancing youth innovation. We must ask ourselves how many life-changing, world-saving ideas are going unknown and unfunded because we fail to adequately value and support youth innovation. Time and time again, grassroots, locally driven approaches are shown to be the ones with the staying power and the ability to make the impact we need to make meaningful strides towards the SDGs. And young people are uniquely well motivated and positioned to propel these actions forward. Despite this, young changemakers are too often left feeling isolated, burnt out, overwhelmed, and faced with insurmountable challenges when they attempt to make an impact. Young changemakers are hungry for inspiration, information, and a reimagination of our world, and we are ready to give this to them. So, how do we get this fire going? We must first ignite innovation and galvanize action through inspiration. People learn most through other people's experiences, through emotion, resonance, and connection. And this is something that our Nigerian trailblazer, Seifunmi Adbote, is harnessing through the development of the Youth SDG Innovators podcast. Young people will find solace in this space of connection rather than trawling the internet for hours on end to navigate the complicated funding landscape. They can pause and connect and be inspired by our diverse range of stories and insights from other young people who have walked in their shoes and succeeded. The podcast will delve into the practicality of how to financially sustain social impact projects and to effectively accelerate action towards the SDGs. Now, what to do with all of this inspiration? With young changemakers fired up and ready to go, Walter and Kushi, our Peruvian and Indian powerhouse duo, are taking on the challenges young people face regarding access to information. With an ocean of opportunities scattered around the web, young founders find it hard to navigate appropriate funding opportunities. The Future Forward Fund, a platform through which young changemakers can be empowered and equipped with the information they need, will build bridges across the divide between funders and young innovators, brokering engagement, understanding, and trust to build resilient relationships for sustainable impact. The centralized resource board will make it easy for young people to locate potential resources for financing and gain the support that they need to act on these opportunities. If, or should I say when, we succeed in laying these foundations, we will unlock truly audacious and bold potential in the form of initiatives like the Refugee Bank for Africa, which seeks to reimagine entire systems that at present perpetuate inequities. I know I do not need to educate you about the challenges experienced by refugees, and recent news makes the significance of this challenge even more evident. But if we are truly serious about leaving no one behind in the SDGs, we need to move this awareness to the forefront of our mind and translate it into action. Every year, 120,000 Africans risk their lives using illegal boat transfers to attempt to access safety for themselves and for their families, with 3,000 people dying in this process every year. When Africa will soon represent 48% of the world's youth, it is unrealistic to believe that this is the context from which we hope to see a better future emerge. And this is the mission of our third innovator, Abraham Cabral, who is passionate about seeing justice for the refugee community. The Refugee Bank for Africa will fight against the scourges of financial insecurity that plague refugees by investing directly into the refugee community, empowering them to embrace financial independence through microfinancing, and in doing so, reducing youth unemployment and combating the brain drain of talent, which is stealing future potential innovators and leaders from Africa. By taking a systemic approach, the Refugee Bank is a perfect prototype for youth innovation to accelerate progress towards the SDGs while leaving no one behind. A model that will be invaluable in the next 7 years as we approach 2030 and seek to turbocharge our progress. The reality is, we still have the chance to reach these ambitions, but it requires investment, serious investment. And this, like so many other innovations by young people, is a tool for us to reach our shared future, to address the challenges that we see both in Africa and beyond. Now, this pitch is not and cannot be the end of this conversation. To fail to invest in our most precious emerging resource, these young changemakers, is to give up far too soon on our own future. So join us as we embark on a year of accelerating action towards the SDGs. We are ready to give young changemakers the support they deserve. Are you?
Thanks, Taylor. That was a great call to action at the end. We're now going to turn to Anissa, the UN Foundation Gender Equality Next Generation Fellow, to represent her group. Anissa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Harshani. So in 2015, the United Nations developed the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which are developmental priorities to be achieved by the year 2030. Unfortunately, current projections show that we are unlikely to achieve all of the SDGs by 2030. The UN has continued to stress the need for gender equality and innovation for us to successfully accelerate the advancement of the SDGs. The Gender Equality Action Group is led by 3 outstanding initiatives designed to speak to just that, the importance of achieving gender equality for us to achieve all of the SDGs. These 3 exciting initiatives are led by 3 exceptional women leaders, and these are Women Weaving in Science by Alejandra Kiwantar, Storytelling for Change by Charity Adihambo, and Refugee Radio Program by Jamila Karimi. Now, according to the World Bank, climate change disproportionately affects Indigenous communities more as compared to non-Indigenous communities. The Women Weaving in Science initiative was designed by an Indigenous rights youth activist, Alejandra Kiwantar from Colombia. This brilliant initiative interweaves and intersects climate change and gender justice issues to protect and amplify the voices of Indigenous communities, including frontline defenders in all social and political arenas. Through various workshops and communal dialogue, this initiative will train Indigenous women to be frontliners in climate action, focusing specifically on food sovereignty and clean energy. The powerful women who will be beneficiaries of this initiative will be capacitated and equipped to develop locally driven projects to tackle the adverse effects of climate change in their communities. Overall, this initiative will increase the resilience of women and girls in the face of climate impacts by increasing their capacity for participation and access to decision-making and providing pathways for financial independence for them. So if you are passionate about issues on intersectional gender justice, women empowerment and climate change, I hope this sparks your interest. The next initiative, we have Storytelling for Change initiative by Charity Adihambo, which focuses on the art of storytelling as a tool for innovation. We saw a shocking rise in the number of gender-based violence cases during the COVID-19 pandemic, with Kenya's GBV cases rising well over 200%. Think about that. The Storytelling for Change initiative, developed by Kenyan actress and girls' rights activist Charity Adihambo, takes us to Kisumu County in the Kenyan port city on scenic Lake Victoria. However, the gender equality picture in Kisumu is anything but scenic. The Storytelling for Change initiative will foster a network and provide a platform for creative changemakers across Kisumu to develop and amplify their very unique voice. Using various storytelling tools, this initiative will highlight the voices of vulnerable women and girls between the ages of 15 and 28 through performances in spoken word and theater to create dialogue with community and duty barriers to protect girls and women from the violence that continues to riddle their communities. This initiative will reach out to informal settlements in and around Kisumu by involving women and girls, training them on effective referral pathways and how to use media campaigning through short film training. So if you're a creative storyteller, passionate about gender justice, I hope this initiative energizes you to support the Gender Equality Action Group. Last but not least, we have the Refugee Radio Program by Jamila Karimi. I am sure you are all well aware of the devastating situation for Afghan women. For almost two years now, the access afforded to Afghan women in education, employment, and social freedoms has continued to be reduced. According to reports, more than 87% of Afghan female journalists have suffered discrimination under this new regime. The Refugee Radio Program by Afghan refugee and activist Jamila Karimi will create and broadcast radio programs through various platforms and with capacity building training and community building opportunities. The long-term ambition for this very bold initiative also includes the ability to provide employment opportunities for female Afghan journalists. As a former journalist myself, this initiative is very, very close to my heart, as it not only centers on challenging the gender inequality situation in Afghanistan, but also challenges the limitation of other fundamental human rights, such as freedom. And I think these are critical conversations for us to preserve democracy and the art of activism. So to all my media enthusiasts, my human rights activists, my very radical feminists, I hope this initiative inspires you to support the Gender Equality Action Group. To conclude, I think we can all see how intersectional gender equality is. So to all my activists, whether you're in the climate change sector, democracy sector, peace and security sector, or even the media and art sector, I hope the Gender Equality Action Group speaks to you all. As we renew our vows with the SDGs this year at the SDG Summit, help us get gender equality at the forefront of all of those conversations, because again, we cannot achieve all of the SDGs without achieving gender equality. We would appreciate your support in all forms, whether it's financial resourcing or human capacity or just ideas. If you have any other exciting ideas or even have ideas on how we can scale up some of these initiatives, it is not too late to join the Gender Equality Action Group. Thank you all.
Well done, Anissa, and well done to all the action groups. And that's a wrap, guys. We're now going to hear from our panel 2 judges and their advice for our 4 action groups that just presented. Today, we are honored to have Ulrika Modéer, UN Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Bureau of External Relations and Advocacy at UNDP, Anna Brodowsky, Vice President of Public Affairs at Essity. Unfortunately, we don't have Mohammed today as he sends his regrets as he's unable to attend, but we do have Ezekwesili, Senior Economic Advisor at the Africa Economic Policy Development Initiative. I'll turn to each of you individually for your collective feedback on the action groups. Your inputs can be to all the 4 groups together or to a single action group. It's your choice. Ulrika, I would love to turn to you first for your advice. You lead UNDP's relationships with member states and shape its communications and advocacy to realize the vision of the SDGs. It's a tough job. You're also a fierce advocate for climate change and passionate about innovation. You pushed UNDP to do a campaign about fossil fuel subsidies with a dinosaur in the General Assembly poll. Wow. What advice do you have for our action groups today?
Thank you, Hashani. And perhaps I'm preempting somewhat also the discussions, but the question that was posed, are the action groups inspiring? Are they attracting, the sensation of actually making it possible to make things done? And would this give impact? And my answer would be yes. UNDP is present, and most of you would know, in 170 member states. And we're one of the few organizations that is actually encompassing most of the sustainable development goals. And we are looking for system solutions. And I think that this is also what we have seen in several of these key proposals. And I think that this is also what will take us back on track and also be able to move forward. I think it's incredibly inspiring, as I said, to listen to all of this. And inspiration is important because UNDP has accompanied throughout COVID, the pandemic, but also now, of course, with the ripple effects of the impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the socioeconomic impact on the ground. And let me say that, the data does not look good. We are moving in reverse instead of forward. In 2 consecutive years, we have seen a decline of human development in a way that we have never seen before since UNDP started to measure this back in the beginning of the 1990s with our Human Development Report. So we need all of this, a lot of inspiration, and actually showcasing then that we can get back on track and we can move forward, and we need youth action and we need innovation to make this possible. Let me start just with education. Of course, once again, I mean, looking at the years of the pandemic, and this was also mentioned, so many young people without access to education. But of course, then at the same time, we saw a push for digital innovation, for digital infrastructure and platforms. So I would very much also like to say that we would be more than interested also to partner, and of course our colleagues in UNICEF would say the same, because there are much more potential with regards to the initiative that Islam talked about with regards to self-learning, how we can look at lifelong learning in a different way than we did before because of the digital platforms. But in order for that to have the youth perspective, we need to take control of the agenda. And right now, many countries across the world are developing their digital roadmaps. And here's, of course, where we would need to see how we could integrate these initiatives into that. The ecosystems for access, of course, supporting communities. This is what we saw, the increasing inequality that came also with COVID, and how we need to make sure that we really, as we support countries and actors to embark on the digital journey and build the platforms for this, can make sure that we don't leave anyone behind. So the ecosystems for access and making sure that we don't see increasing inequality onwards is really key. So really also to Tommy and the team working on that, what a great initiative, and I think really needed right now to make the long-term lasting impact that we would need. And then informal education, yes, of course, indeed. I mean, there are huge opportunities, and I think that this also links back to the first initiative presented with regards to the self-learning initiatives. There is so much information. We have never seen so much information and data online. But how can we then support the building of these self-owned initiatives linking up to the information that you could find there? Incredibly inspiring. I think with a lot of potential of impact, not least if we could also see and follow up with all of you together with other colleagues in the UN system and beyond, how you could link into initiatives that are already on their way. So more than happy to, of course, put forward UNDP's assets, and I'm sure other UN colleagues in other entities would also say the same. Looking then at climate change quickly, I mean, such an important area. Also, alongside with digital, what our Human Development Report defined as the main contributor to the increasing inequalities that we saw ahead of COVID. And now, of course, with the looming socioeconomic crisis, the risk of climate change not getting the attention needed. I think what was presented by Martin and Booty presenting on behalf of Marty, I mean, making that local connection, local problem solutions with regards to waste management, but then of course also linking it back to the global platforms for learning. Huge potential, really inspiring, because it's such a concrete way to show that we can make change happen, engage at the local level, mobilize the support needed, but then of course getting much more impact through the global platforms. All of these initiatives with regards to climate change, the young people solutions problem, also linking up the global platforms, I think we're showcasing the need for local action, but then really seeing how we can also get the support from the structural change that we need to say. I wanted also to comment on documentaries. I mean, a number of initiatives also used also the cultural expressions. I think that this is really important. And yes, indeed, there is a need to look at the carbon credits and what is actually happening in a space where many countries in the global north have to take much more responsibility. There are potentials to work with Article 6 and others, but what is actually happening, and are we, as we are implementing this, in this case in Kenya, really taking into consideration all the needed aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals and the rights-based perspective of the communities involved. Really looking forward to look more into all of these initiatives. Financing, of course, key. youth innovation key, but do we have an infrastructure for this? UNDP, and I would just like to pitch also the possibility for you to look into closer, our Accelerator Labs network are trying to house and also be supportive to the ecosystems that needs to be put in place. I think Taylor's comments on all of this were really, important and also to the point with regards to the need to look at this space even closer, because of course we would know that innovation many times is local. It's many times made by young people, but do they then have the support systems? I would say no to that question. And this is also the reason why we have also come forward with our Accelerator Lab. So we'd very much like to connect. I think podcasts, of course, inspiring way of accompanying also the journey of others that you would need when you have an idea, but you don't find a way to come forward with that idea. And then, of course, the access to the fundraising and the information that you would need. Refugee Bank for Africa, we know that a number of UN agencies have worked with this. That is the direct access to capital, but also not least then the perspective of the agency. I mean, if we are to find innovators somewhere, we would find them among the refugee communities, 1% of the world's population on the move, and the strength that we would see there. And yeah.
Time. I'm sorry, because I wish we could have you for longer. This would be true for all judges.
Let me then just say, gender at the heart of what we do, incredibly inspiring as well. I'm happy to come back if there's time at the end, but very much looking forward to see how we can be of support as well from UNDP's side and also in coordination with other UN agencies. Thanks.
Thank you, Ulrika. I forgot to also introduce Courtney, Vice President of the Captain Planet Foundation. Apologies for that, Courtney. You've been with us since the very beginning, so I'm giving you a shout out for that. We're turning now to Anna. You're up next. Essity has been a steadfast partner of the UN Foundation since 2016 and has led the charge for multi-stakeholder engagement, particularly on gender equality, global advocacy, and climate action. You regularly bring your executives and representatives to the UN to get inspired by the work of the SDGs. What is your feedback to the action groups as they prepare for the SDG Summit?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for at all being here today and actually listening to all these fantastic presentations. It's truly inspiring. And I feel very galvanized and thinking that I want to join all of these as well. And if I can't do it myself, I'm going to tell everyone I know what I've heard today. It's fascinating, really, and I can totally see the importance and the big impact that all of you actually can provide, and we need this. Clearly, we need this. The world needs this, as we all know. And I really want to also, again, exactly as Ulrika, I want to touch on all of your excellent pitches that were done here today. But of course, the time is a bit short here, so I'm going to try to do it shortly, but truly inspiring, all of you. And I think starting with the education, and I think obviously a lot starts also with education, and I'm sure many of you who came forward with these excellent ideas and pitches have also based that on your foundation and your own education that you've been accessing. I think, Essity is a global hygiene and health company, and as a private company, a private sector company, we of course rely very much on the skills, the knowledge, the expertise that sort of is around us everywhere in the world. We are present in about 150 different countries, and the knowledge and the expertise is really based on fundamental good education. And therefore, I thought all the three examples that were presented today here by Alice, I think were great. I mean, taking opportunity to sort of finding this self-education and connecting and bringing the tools forward so that we can actually build on the knowledge that is already existing there is an excellent idea, and unleash access and knowledge between what's already there, and really highlight the power in self-management, if you wish. And then, of course, the connecting again, this idea of the networks that were also presented, Alliance for Non-Formal Education. Again, it sort of builds so much on what's already existing, and really trying to then making sure that rather than starting up all different new things, then actually connecting and making sure that there is a mechanism for this, and finding the knowledge and exchange between different national and regional and global initiatives. I think that can just, drive both the awareness and collective impact based on what's actually already happening in different places. And of course, in the world today, that is needed, but it's also possible with the connections that we can actually foster. So excellent ideas as well. And then, of course, the supporting disadvantaged communities, so important, and obviously was how the way it was presented as well, to leave no one behind. And I guess, again, coming back to the importance of allowing everyone to have the chance to develop and come through and break barriers to their own education and being part of society and feel empowered is, of course, so important. And for the individual, of course, but I think for the whole society as a whole. And this is something I think we just need to continue to stimulate. So excellent, great ideas, and everything starts with education. And then, of course, we had the very good ideas also presented by Buti about the climate issues, and the company having a presence in about 150 countries, of course, also need to care about the climate and the footprint we leave. So this is, of course, also extremely close to our heart and what we are working with every day, next to trying to make sure we deliver health and hygiene solutions for everyone, for healthier societies. And again, I really am totally inspired by all these ideas again here about the clean cities, and this challenge that was presented here is, of course, something that we see in a lot of continents and a lot of regions, moving away from landfill, and how do we kind of move us away from there. And I think companies as ours also really try to engage and support in this journey. What I really liked about this clean cities ideas was also to find the social barriers. How do we kind of move forward, and understanding the underlying challenges here to really move forward. And by tackling this, of course, there was also not just the benefit of getting the plastic and the waste away, it actually immediately can bring health benefits, of course, to everyone, having heard the challenge with the cholera and so on. I really liked also this youth-focused R&D. We are also an R&D-based company, and really, again, coming back to education, is so relying on knowledge and how to develop further and so on. So I again, connecting the youth, training the youth, and then also tailoring how you can actually galvanize these ideas even further. And here I would just like to also see the possibility to also connect that to, obviously, as Ulrika was saying, to the UN programs, but of course the private sector as well. I mean, there's a huge interest also for tipping into new ideas. And I think the importance is just, how do we connect? How do we find these connection spots? And I think this website is an excellent idea. And there could be new ways, of course, see how we can access and foster dialogues there as well between also the private sector and these youth. I also love this documentary. Yeah, I will be.
I'm sorry, if you could stop quickly. I'm very sorry, because I wish we could explore
Excellent. No, and I like this documentary. I think it talks really to inspire, and the care really, as was mentioned, is a catalyst for action. And of course, the gender part, which is of course very close to our heart and the company that I work for, looking out for women's hygiene and health. All of them were fantastic. And I think just as Anita was saying, if we can tackle the gender equality, it's a way to actually also achieve all the SDGs. So I think, if I love all of these, and I would love to talk all to them about the radio program, fantastic, educating new journalists in that, the storytelling for change, we all need, I think. I would love to go and do that training, and myself, actually, maybe I can do a shorter pitch reference next time instead, and the capacity building through social media and so on. So thanks again. I'm totally inspired. And I can see a lot of impact here. So let's make sure we can connect and see how we can further leverage these ideas.
Definitely, I share your energy for enthusiasm for all the action groups. I'd love to join all of them. Courtney, it's over to you now. I was part of the generation that loved the Captain Planet show and the Planeteers, young change makers that work together to solve global problems. And I can still sing the song today. The Captain Planet Foundation was inspired by the same vision to create a new generation of heroes for our planet. What is your advice to the action groups as they design, iterate, and implement their ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me, and I'm so honored to be amongst this incredible group. As she said, I'm the Vice President of Captain Planet Foundation, which our mission is engaging and empowering young people to be problem solvers for the planet. So we work with young people all around the world, advancing different environmental and climate justice sorts of campaigns. And my other hat is I'm a professor at a US university focused on leadership for sustainability. And I can keep my comments sort of short, but I think, what I heard across all of the groups and from both panels, I think when we talk about leadership for sustainability and some of the sustainable development challenges that we look at, we know the problem, right? And we typically know the solutions. It's not a mystery. It's not a science challenge. It's not necessarily a technology challenge. I think a lot of what we're hearing is there are social barriers, there are institutional barriers, and a lot of those are coming from leadership, right? And so I think a lot of the ideas that have come forward today are really about how we demonstrate leadership to be able to address some of these challenges and challenge some of the systems that have created some of these barriers. The three things that really stood out to me in all of the ideas that were just presented was the power of community and the power of creating these networking opportunities where young people, all of you that have presented and those that whose ideas did not present have been part of this conversation, right? So you've connected with each other, and that is huge. That is a huge step in the right direction. I think another piece of this was the power of stories. And I think, when we talk about ideas and we talk about solutions in the abstract, it's sometimes hard. But when we see it in real life, when we can see how those ideas have manifest and how they are addressing the problem, it makes it real, right? And we can see ourselves in that situation. So a lot of what I'm hearing is, how do we capture those stories? How do we tell those stories? How do we share those stories? How do we help people sort of imagine what we're imagining and see what we want to see, and be part of that reality? Right. And then the third piece that I've heard throughout all of the ideas are really, how do we start to challenge the status quo, right? How do we reduce the systematic barriers to resources and opportunities? Like, for example, in the education group, a lot of what we're hearing is maybe this, the formal education system that we've relied on isn't doing what we need it to do, right? How can we challenge that? How can we change it? And I think a lot of the solutions that were coming up were creating communities, creating networks, creating some of these portals, right? And there are things that exist, as everybody has said, that, we don't need to reinvent necessarily. It's a matter of sort of finding and strengthening these ideas to meet the current needs. So, I would just say, the three categories that we were given about inspiring and galvanizing and benefiting, all of your ideas are doing that through these communities, through these stories, through bringing these ideas to the fore and bringing them to life. So, I would say in the work that we do at Captain Planet Foundation, working with young people, one of the hardest things is figuring out what you want to tackle first, and sort of narrowing down. There's so many things to be able to address, and sort of defining the problem that you really want to tackle, and then being able to ideate and come up with solutions. So you all are leagues down the path in that work, which is incredible. So congratulations to everybody who presented and everybody who participated in this. And we're excited to be part of it. So let us know how we can help.
Thank you, Courtney. I think your words spoke to all of the 8 action groups. Ove, you're our final panelist of the day. It's an incredible honor to have you with us as former VP for the World Bank's Africa region, co-founder of Transparency International, and co-founder of Bring Back Our Girls movement, and Federal Minister of Education in Nigeria. Wow, you have a great, amazing track record. After hearing all the action groups today, what are your key takeaways and recommendations to them? What stands out the most to you? Could you come off on mute, please?
You sometimes think you've conquered the Zoom, and then it shows you really haven't. So first to say what a great delight to finally make it, because it didn't look good on my schedule. But I am just so grateful that I got the opportunity of this infectious energy that I have seen amongst our young innovators, social entrepreneurs from all over the world, which is the indication that talent is in fact very well distributed around our world. And that anytime we don't have inclusion, we should worry, because it means that we're not making the effort to finding the talents that are all over the place. So congratulations to every one of them. Considering how much limited time we have and the incredible menu that we have been offered by our young ones, I decided to take some central themes around the three big ideas or the three action groups that we listened to. On the general side of things, the first thing that I want to establish is that collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. And that is so important because we see clearly that silos are not going to be useful. Why is that so? Because my big quote these days to everyone, whether private sector, government, or communities or individuals, is that small is no longer beautiful. Small is no longer beautiful. We can do big things. So literally, this program is called Big Dreams, Big Aspirations, Big Pitch. So make it big. And in order to make it big, you have to collaborate. You have to find people who are doing similar things. And because it is easier for the young ones to use technology to find themselves, they don't have to write pen pal letters like we used to write to people in the other regions of the world before we found ourselves. So that really made the R&D, youth-focused R&D initiative very resonant for me, because research and development is so at the heart of being able to innovate, and innovate in a way that you can find many others coming to the table with you. So I need that sense of collaboration. The second thing that I need is for our social entrepreneurs to realize that the definition of resources for their generation is actually now unconventional. So resources is not talking about money. What's the greatest barrier to your problem? Oh, wow, if you just give me $1 billion, I'll solve all the problems. No, that's not your mindset. If you have that mindset, it would be very traditional. For you, it is an inverse in the ranking of what resource is. Number one resource for your generation is partnerships. Partnerships. You've got to have the capacity to develop your partnership map for every problem that you want to solve. Because when you do your partnership mapping and you do a canvas of the possible partners you could have in solving any problem, the incredible amount of resource that would then unlock for you is just, way beyond anything I can imagine. I've done it, even as an older version of yourselves. The second rank for resource for me is knowledge. Knowledge. You have to absolutely enjoy learning. You have to enjoy knowing what is new. What are people that I have never met? What are they thinking? What are they knowing? What is science saying? What are the humanities revealing? What is society evolving into? Knowledge. Huge investment in knowledge and in a multidisciplinary way. Because if you are not multidisciplinary, you wouldn't be thinking of intersectionalities, and you would not be thinking of an integrated approach to solving problems. So it is huge to make knowledge your number 2 resource. Then finance comes a distant number 3. You see, the reason that finance comes a distant number 3 for you in solving problems where you're thinking of resources differently is that through partnerships, some of your partners bring their pocket with them when they come around your table. when they buy into your idea, they begin to solve things that you would have had to pay for. The reason that knowledge then becomes your number two is that through knowledge, you and your partners can remove more asymmetries that could have stood in the way of the most efficient solution. Because even your current idea could benefit from additional knowledge that then takes it to dimensions you originally did not think about. So when you have the partnership, you have the knowledge, what remains that is needing money suddenly reduces in scale. You don't want money to intimidate you into abandoning great ideas. So you must look at the definition of resources differently. Then I'd like to say that for the education team, one of the key data that we're seeing in education that's troubling is that the foundational literacy and numeracy skills all around our world are so really fragile. So the foundational skills are standing in the way of even the digital learning, of the vocational programs, of the skills building programs. So it means that you must accompany every aspect of what you're trying to do, whether it's the self-development and self-learning one by Islam Rafiq, or the one by Tommy within the local communities to build new entrepreneurs, for livelihood development, or it is the one around Alliance for Non-Formal Education, where the soft skills are being used to complement the formal education. You must recognize the importance of the foundational skills. And I end on the note. I end on the note that the agency that can give you us the fastest partnership for solving problems at scale is actually government. Government has that capacity. I know our young ones dread governments because governments are time wasters. Governments can be dream killers. But I need you to understand that your generation will have to reinvent government. You must not assume that government is unnecessary. It is an important engine for sound policies, for the right kinds of institutions, and for quality investments in public goods that are important to reduce inequalities. And so whether it's the gender equality team, or it's the climate change team, or it's the education team, you must be people who are excited about reinventing governments because they are important for our achievement of the SDGs. Thank you so very much. And hello to all my co-judges. I really enjoyed listening to you as much as I enjoyed listening to the presentations of our young friends. And frankly, I'm motivated. We're going through a very difficult election period in Nigeria, but it was good to escape and listen to all of you so that I could get some strength. Thank you, Hashima. Yes.
You were phenomenal. I mean, I think the energy in this session is just electric. And this is in fact, the inspiration of the big brainstorm to reinvent, to reimagine our institutions. And honestly, our state of multilateralism. Thank you, Obe. Thank you, Ulrika. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Courtney. Your feedback was insightful, amazing, and will help set the foundation of the SDG Summit. As the action groups inspire, galvanize, and influence so many generations into action. First, I want to share my profound thanks and admiration to all the young people who have stayed on this journey with us, to breathe energy, imagination, innovation into the SDG Summit. These action groups that you have formed are the delivery mechanism for the SDG Summit. Continue to grow your groups as a force for action. We also invite all action groups to work with the UN Foundation and the Unlock the Future Coalition, an alliance of the world's biggest youth-led and biggest youth-focused organizations to reach over 875 million people. We've heard about the power of collective action, the power of intergenerational action, and the power of partnership. So let's stay on this journey together. This brings us to the engine room. The big brainstorm, yes, it ends, but we have a new space where you can continue to mobilize, iterate on your ideas and plan for the Essity Summit. There are some key moments. We'll bring the engine room to various pit stops along the way. That is the HLPF, that is the ECOSOC Youth Forum, that is the SCG ECOSOC Youth Forum. The first pit stop is the ECOSOC Youth Forum, and there's some key moments, and we will share some of those opportunities to engage in the mailing list. And then the round for voting now for your favorite action group has closed, but we have the benefit of a special performance from MC Millery, a young Chilean artist featured in the New York Times for her trailblazing lyrics and her ability to turn the heads of leaders of industry and government around the world. We're going to now take it away for MC Millery, and we'll announce the awards at the end.
Marmari Compuchencha MC Milleray. Hola, ¿qué tal a todos? Soy MC Milleray. Y para mí, como joven, el ser parte de esta instancia, siendo una mujer indígena, mapuche y rapera, a través de mis letras busco incentivar y concientizar sobre nuestros territorios, su cuidado y protección de nuestros ríos, la defensa de su biodiversidad, sobre todo la importancia de nuestros derechos, y uno de ellos es el ser escuchados. Somos y debemos ser parte de cada proceso con el que se nos vea afectados. Somos el presente y somos quienes debemos definir nuestro futuro. El rap mapuche se hace presente como herramienta de lucha y de no dejar que el silencio nos consuma.
Para mis tierras ancestrales, mi ser mapuche. La tristeza ver por dentro en sus ojos el llorar, abrir mis sentimientos para poder escuchar, que a los cuatro vientos yo le quiero gritar, que yo a los mapuches voy a representar. Mi tierra ancestral se debe levantar, mi tierra ancestral se debe levantar. Más de 500 años sin parar de luchar, hay tierra recuperada pero son nuestras, nuestro hogar. Seguimos resistiendo, no nos van a derrotar, y seguimos resistiendo, no nos van a derrotar, no, no. La ruruga que suena en mi tierra mapuche. Soy yo, con mi loco voy creando palabras de mi luz entregando. Libertad, palabra creada durante la conquista que en mi pueblo nunca existirá. ¿Por qué? Porque el mapuche siempre fue libre. Esa palabra nunca existió y nunca existirá. ¿Quedó claro? ¿O no? ¿O no? Y de mi loco nació con buena, creció para la mujer, ¿me entiende lo que quiero antigar? Para que usted me entienda, para que usted me comprenda, que no es solo guiar y ponerse una prenda, porque todo tiene su significado, porque durante años y años hemos perdurado y seguimos aquí levantados, dando la lucha el día a día, dando la lucha el día a día. Es que yo soy como Cuyán que de noche puede divisar, represento la mujer día a día de la luchara, y con mucho neguer, eso sepa dedicar, que con mi padre ando yo te invito a caminar. El mapuche ya no es pueblo, el mapuche ya no es sol, esto nace de mi piuca, esto nace del corazón. Hay niños sufriendo la demencia, no quiere parar, diciendo mentiras, no piense engañar, hablando de cuidar al pueblo y por la espalda apuñalar. Seguimos resistiendo, no nos van a derrotar. Y ellos nos incriminan como ladrones, siendo que de los delitos que fueron los verdaderos autores. Ser mapuche corre por mi sangre y yo me enorgullezco. Vamos luchando y exigiendo los derechos, sé que roban, matan, mienten, oprimen nuestro pueblo, que van 500 años de cansaremos. Y chetan y mapuche y por mi ok, amor la peta y hueshan en kawaii y monera, uin kawaii tu que collect tu fani que chupa ta cachipan como la miel de buen tu mera. Y chetan y mapuche y por mi ok, amor la peta y hueshan en kawaii y monera, uin kawaii tu que collect tu fani que chupa ta cachipan como la miel de buen tu mera. Buena, porque seguimos en la lucha. Yo, por Mapu libre, amor la peta y hueshan.
So I have the exciting news to share. Who won? Which action group mobilized the most amounts of people in the last 2 weeks? And it is the Action Group for Climate and Sustainability. Congratulations, guys. You've done an amazing job in mobilizing your group, and we're excited to see your journey over the next year. All action groups have done so incredibly well, and we are so proud of you. With especially to the runner-up, kudos to the Future Generations Action Group. Another round of applause for you. And thank you, everyone, for all your support and energy. Continue to stay engaged. You'll always hear from us. And if you want to find ways to understand more about our program and how you can engage with the UN system, feel free to reach out at any time. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons and evenings.